All right, hey everybody. So go ahead and share my screen. All right, so questions 4 and 5 in this week's exercises are fairly difficult questions, and there's no examples in the textbook on how to do them. Well, there is an example for question 4, but honestly, it takes a little explaining, and there's not really much in the way of explaining in the textbook as far as what's going on. So I thought I would just go ahead and go through them. So this video, we're going to focus on question number 4. Okay, so let's go ahead and have a look at that first. So the question is, okay, so it gives us this query here that we see. All right. And then it says, rewrite this query, the following query with 2 subqueries. So you see that the query has 2 subqueries in it, okay, into a multi-column subquery, all right? Don't worry too much about that multi-column thing. That's just saying that it's going to return a result with more than 1 column, which you can see here is the case. But return it, basically it's asking, like it wants you to return it with 1 subquery. This whole thing's going to be combined into 1 subquery. And it says that we can do this, or we're supposed to do this, using a filtered cross join between the film and the actors table. Okay. So what we're going to do, we're going to kind of deconstruct this. The first thing we're going to do is deal with this part of it here. Okay, we're going to use a filtered cross join between the film and the actors table. And then we'll use that as the subquery. Once we run that as the query, we'll use it as the subquery. And then we'll connect it to this, the main query as the subquery. All right, so let's go ahead and run this. I just want you to see what the code does. This is giving us what it said in the instructions for the problem there. All right, so we can see what it's returning here. Okay, it's returning basically like the actor ID and the film ID, and every row or every instance where the actor has the last name of Monroe and the rating is PG. So it looks like there's probably 2 based on the actor ID, and it looks like there's probably 2 different actors who have the last name of Monroe, and they've each been in a couple of PG rated movies. Don't know what the other ratings are. All right, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to retain this one as the original so we can reference it, and then I'm going to copy another query down here that we can tinker with. All right, so the main query, let's go ahead and let's just leave that alone for a minute here, and let's just go ahead and deal with this subquery and turning this into a single query. Okay, so rather than trying to manipulate it, I'm just going to go ahead and start from scratch. But we're doing the same thing. We're wanting to pull from the actor ID and the film ID where it meets these 2 conditions, and we're going to do it using a cross join. Okay. Okay, so let me just wait that, and then we'll do select, okay, actor ID, okay, from actor. So let's go ahead and we're doing a join, so we need to give these aliases. So I'm going to give this A, and then I need to go back and change that. And then I'm going to do cross join. Okay. Film F. Okay. Oops. Okay. Oh, and then let's see. So we wanted to get the actor ID. We also wanted to get the film ID. So film ID, and then we've given this from film F, so we've given the alias of F, so we need to change that. Okay. All right, so we've got a cross join here, and we want to actually give it some conditions. Okay, so it doesn't just give us a multiplication of every single row in the these two databases. So of every combination of those rows, which would be a huge, huge computational waste. So let's go ahead and set our conditions here. Okay, so we have two conditions where last name equals Monroe and we're rating equals PG. So let's go ahead and just add those. So last name equals Monroe and rating equals PG. Okay, now you probably noted that because we gave these aliases, we need to alias these in the where clause here. So last name comes from the actor table, so that's going to be a.last name, and the rating comes from the film table, so that's going to be f.rating. All right, so then let's go ahead, before we go any further, and let's go ahead and run this and just see what happens when we run this code. Okay, so we've got a mess of all the different combinations where it meets this criteria, and this is a very, very lengthy table. You can't see here, but it returned 388 rows. So what we're really wanting to do is just hone in on the ones in here where these conditions are true, but it's not cross join. It's not giving us every possible combination. All right, so we've got the query here. Let's go ahead and run it, and just to see what happens. It's not going to work. Let's save the suspense. Okay, so let's see if I can get this thing out of the way. Okay, operand should contain one column. All right, so basically what that is telling us here, all right, is that this is relating, it's asking for a one column here where is in, and then it's giving us basically two conditions in two columns. So what it needs to do is it needs to match this up to what's being produced here. So what we want to do here is we want to actually go ahead and add in. So let's see, actor ID and then film ID. We'll match the aliases to this and not to this. Okay, so fa.actor ID and fa.film ID. So we're pulling this from the film actor table. Right. Okay, and then we can enclose this in parentheses here. Okay, and let's see. Hopefully this runs. Yay, and it did run. Okay, so let me just note here that we don't need actually the alias in this part of it. So I could actually take this out. All the references to FA in the main query. We do need in the subquery, we do need the aliases, but we don't need them in the main query because it's actually just referencing one single table there, and it's not joining it to itself or doing any such feats. So let's go ahead and run that. Yeah, so as you see, it actually runs the same way. All right, so hopefully that helps with that one. Like I said, that's kind of a tricky one. All right, so let's move on to question 5. Okay, and here really what kind of makes it difficult, this one, well, I shouldn't say difficult. I don't want to set your brains with the expectation that this is difficult, but the truth is that subqueries, correlated subqueries, are a subject that a lot of times takes just a little while for your brain to wrap around what's happening. just regular non-correlated subqueries are the more common of the two. But then there's this thing called correlated subqueries. Okay, and so what correlated subqueries? I mean, I would encourage you to look. There's some good videos on YouTube and just do some quick searches on it and see how different people explain it until it starts to make sense. But basically, when you have just a non-correlated subquery, it's running these conditions, and then it's running the main query to find where it matches these conditions. Whereas here, it's basically like with a correlated subquery, it's running the main query, and then every time it's running it for every value in the table that you're referencing. Every row in the table you're referencing is checking it against what's in the correlated subquery. All right. So really, there's not any advantage particularly in turning this into a correlated subquery. In fact, I believe that it just uses up more computing resources. So this is more of an exercise in simply just understanding, how they're coded differently. So don't worry too much if you don't see the logic in actually doing this. And if somebody does find the logic in it, please let the class know and why it would be better. But let's look at the question here. So it's asking us to rewrite this. It has two subqueries. It's the same thing that we were using for both. And it says both of this into two correlated subqueries. So basically, we're just going to be turning this into each of these subqueries into correlated subqueries. All right. So really all we do here, okay, is the first thing. Okay, we're correlating. So we're correlating each of these subqueries with what we're pulling from this main query. So we're referencing the film actor table, which we're aliasing as FA. Okay. So, and then we're referencing actor. We're looking for actor ID here in the subquery, which we're going to make into a correlated subquery. So what I want to do is, since I'm going to be referencing aliases and the outer query table, is I want to also, I'm going to be moving, this is going to be referencing, the subquery is going to be referencing two tables. So we have to give this an alias. All right, so I'm going to call it actor A. And then we're going to set that from actor A. Okay. Let's see. All right, so we're going to move that down, and we're going to do something here with this where clause. And so that's where we draw the correlation. Okay, so the correlation we're drawing is that a.actor ID equals, and we're going to correlate this with the outer query. So as you probably guessed, it's going to be fa.actor ID. Okay, and then we want to add the and. Okay, so we're correlating where this condition holds true, and this tells us that we're actually running it against every instance of this. All right, so and then basically we just do the same thing here. So I'll go ahead and break that up to make it so film ID. So film, we'll call this, we have to give this an alias. So film F. So f.film ID. So we're referencing, this has to be consistent since we gave this an alias. Okay. And then here's where the correlation comes into play. All right. So let's see, f dot film ID equals fa dot film ID. Okay, and then, all right. So I think that we're good. At least we don't have to change anything on the outer query to make this happen. This is strictly just what's happening in the subquery itself. So let's run this and fingers crossed. And it did run and did produce exactly the same results. All right. So anyway, that's that. Like I said, I hope that this helps. You know, encourage you to, if this is something that doesn't immediately make sense, you know, watch the video a couple times, run through it a couple times. You know, look up particularly correlated subqueries on YouTube videos and hear other people explain it. You know, sometimes that really helps. If you're having trouble kind of wrapping your brain around it, don't worry, because it actually is one of the more difficult concepts in SQL programming. So, you know, once it's kind of like once you get that nailed down, then you've kind of have it made in SQL, honestly. Anyway, hope that helps, and over and out. And by the way, if you're having trouble with this and you're getting frustrated and getting ready to throw your laptop on the across the room, stop and say a little prayer, as I did before I was actually figuring this out for myself. And just a disclaimer, I do not come up with these exercises. Someone from the department comes up with them. So so a lot of times I have to go through the same exercise of figuring these out too. All right. If you have any questions, feel free to ping me or Brian, and we'll be more than happy to provide additional input on this.